on that disease. I downloaded for my Kindle the color purple. So I was trying to find the winter club, but I said, I'm not going to return that. I can't find that. Oh, the family is now. So,
This is February the 2nd, the first day of Black History Month 2012. We'll never see a day like this again. We're here today at the Psychology of Racism. To join Douglas College. We're here today with Sandra and Rob. And today is a very unusual day, considering the fact that in our culture we lost someone today that was very dear to us, most of us. Our soul train specialist passed away, Don Cornelius. He joined the ancestors today. We don't know if it was because of self-inflicted or not. There is speculation that could have harmed himself, but nothing absolute at this time. Today our conversation is going to be on the greater the degree of the psychology of racism, the lesser the black culture. We're going to deal with Shahrazad Ali, who's going to do our cultural lecture today on a solution to the problem of the psychology of racism. And that has to deal with the black man's guide to understanding the black woman and the black woman's guide to understanding the black man. It's a very controversial topic, and it's good for dialogue and also good for information about ourselves. Today we want to be able to, as I said, pay our respects to Don Cornelius. It was said that he had some form of cancer, and his struggle had become very difficult listening to WOL and Harambe Radio. So his Don Cornelius solution to the psychology of racism was at a time when most black artists could not even cut a record, get on television, or even get on the American bandstand and dance. Is that right? The American bandstand, what's the name of it? We couldn't even, go and dance. So Don Cornelius' effort was one to combat that psychology of racism, and he came up with Soul Train. Soul Train has been with us ever since the 1970s, and he has contributed much to many of the lives of the artists who sing, dance, and are part of entertainment. You could turn to Soul Train and probably see yourself. I remember in the city of Chicago, we were trying to get a ticket so we could go to Soul Train. He was mad when we left. But, it was always an enjoying time because we could express ourselves in dance, song, and that really helped us to deal with the troubling times that we were going through. The civil rights movement was a great thing that happened to us, but we really needed to sing and dance sometimes because somebody was always getting hurt or somebody was always getting killed. And so Soul Train was a way to relieve ourselves. It opened the door for other sitcoms, The Cosby Show, Good Times, What's Happening. I can't name them all. Can y'all remember any of them?
What's Happening?
There was a number of them that came and went so fast that that's my mama. That to bring them up, would take us into some kind of reminiscence because to think of what we were doing.
I guess I can remember Soul Train because I was so pressed to be back home last time on Saturday, so I can look at it. I think they were like 5, between 4 and 5. And I wanted to see it because I just like looking at it, especially some of the dances on it. They had some of the same dances on there.
Yes, right.
So, yeah, I guess
they were doing the muscle and the funky Broadway, the Boogaloo.
The Soul Train line, remember that?
Right, the Soul Train line. The Soul Train line is still significant today. In our family reunion, we would set up the Soul Train line, and we would go down there and put our moves on and, challenge each other. And, we would even call some of the seniors out, and they'd go down the Soul Train line. So, Soul Train really was an instrument in dealing with the psychology of racism for us all the way up until now. As I said, many programs spun from that. We could see Michael Jackson. We could, when he was, before he went into his conversion with his brothers, you could see the Temptations, the Four Tops. It's just so many groups that you could name that wanted to be on Soul Train. It didn't matter if you were in Detroit and you were part of the Detroit music making machine. Can anybody remember what that machine was? Motown. Motown was movie making, but they made some movies from Motown, but they were mostly into music. But all of them wanted to get their chance to be on Soul Train. Every week, Don Cornelius had somebody coming on Soul Train that would play the music. Barigani, brother, how you doing? So today we're right now just discussing contemporary issues. And is anybody ready to present today?
I was ready to do my stuff today.
Okay, we can continue on. Still want to do it? It's up to you. You can't turn them in? All right, well, there's another day, one day at a time. Everything's due by the 25th for sure. So we were discussing Don Cornelius. You heard about him? Talking about Soul Train, giving our due respect to him and many programs that he inspired came out of Soul Train. And so his legacy in terms of solutions for the psychology of racism was the implementation of Soul Train. It provided jobs for people. A lot of people had jobs, like black folks. A institution where if you could dance, sing, talk, radio stations were also spin-off of Don Cornelius. You want to write what's on the board? That's our philosophy for racism, the psychology of racism. And so when we think of Don Cornelius, we think of somebody who had a solution. for the psychology of racism. The things that he did helped us in many ways to be able to deal with it, especially in those times that were tragic, where we lost leaders and family members because of the uncompromising struggle of our culture. We would lose people because we were uncompromising, and we wanted difference. We wanted a change. We wanted something to happen. We didn't want the way things were. So Soul Train was also another instrument that helped to integrate. Although integration was not really what we wanted. We wanted equality. We wanted equal share, and we wanted equal everything. But the Supreme Court and the Euro-American psychology of racism could not fathom giving black people something that was equal. They came up with assimilation, which meant that you had to be mimicking, emulating, and trying to be as much like the European as you could, which is, again, the psychology of racism. The psychology of racism, according to Malcolm, was that when you take your money out of the community in which you live and took it to another community, which was integration, then the community you took the money out of become poor, and the one you took the money to became rich. And so that inspired in me to write the double trap theory, which is what Malcolm talked about. That was the double trap theory. He said even though we did not have money in our communities and we took the money out, even when we took it to the stores in the communities we lived, those stores were operated by people who did not even live in our community. And they would take the money out and take it somewhere else. The double trap theory. So when you think intellectually about our people, when I thought about that theory, the double trap theory, I thought about our intellectual growth and development. A lot of our people are daily breaking their backs to take their children, their intellectual children, to the European community because integration said that we should do so without thinking or having any other second opinion of what to do. They would take them to those communities, and those communities would become powerful and rich, and they would have all of the facilities they need, but that intellectual genius and power that we took out of our communities left our communities stagnant, poor, unqualified, undesirable. After a while, they did not even have jobs for black people to clean the streets because they took the intelligence out and they took it somewhere else. So today we are talking about a blackological synthesis to deal with this psychology of racism coming from the science of blackology. And we talk about the greater the psychology of racism, the lesser the black culture. You know, that we did some mathematical symbols here. Y'all saw those symbols before, greater than, less than. So we want to be able to think mathematically about the psychology of racism. So the greater the colonialism, the lesser the opportunity for black people. Colonialism is not necessarily just Euro-America or the European, but colonialism consists of, not just put two down there, the Euro-American and the Arabic cultures. Those are what we consider the dominant cultures based on our religious involvement at this time in our evolution. we're more Arabic and more European than we were 15, 20, 30 years ago because of integration again. Once we integrated and we saw, some of us, what was in integration, then we began to say, well, no, I don't want to be a Christian, or I don't want to be into the Euro-American. So some of us took on Islam. And we went into Islam thinking that, well, Islam was not American, a Euro-American, culture or religion. So we moved that way, not knowing that Islam was, one of the originators of slavery, and that the Arabs institutionalized slavery and the Europeans internationalized, according to Dr. John. So, I say the greater the Euro and the Arabic culture, the less of the opportunity for blackology. And then colonialism is, again, not only Arabic and Euro, but it was also Asian, all the other cultures as well. There was not one culture in the world that did not benefit from the advent of black slavery. So the greater degrees you have of assimilation, the lesser the opportunity for the justice, redemption, advancement of black people, and the redevelopment of black African culture. And so when I use the mathematical symbols in this equation, this is a blackological synthesis. I wrote a book, Black Solidarity and Awareness of Institutional Racism. And in that book, it revealed this synthesis, that the greater degree of European culture, the less an opportunity to develop black culture. And so that's where we stand today. And one of the ways of being able to develop solutions is that we write about what we think about and what affects us as a people in terms of the psychology of racism. The more we don't write, the more we don't dialogue about it, the more we don't discuss it, the longer it exists. If you look at television, you can see the psychology of racism because it is prevalent in all that is being done. If you look at football, in football, the psychology of racism is such that they never talk about how they receive all of the black players and some of the black coaches today. They only give you an image that the black players are happy about what's going on. The same reflection that you got in slavery is the same reflection that you get with the ball players in the NBA and in the NFL, and even in the baseball. So what am I saying? I'm saying that when a black player talks about how he wants to be thankful and who he has to be thankful for, at the end it's always a European. No black player can say, well, the best coach I ever had was, a black coach. And if he does, he's going to give credit to the black coach and then the white coach that coached the black coach. It's, it's set up so that you would have to honor European culture because they won't tell the story that They destroyed all of the black leagues. They destroyed the black coaches, stole all the players, and now they have all the riches and gold. It's like a war went on. And when the war was over, the one who won the war reaped the benefits of the war. They call it the bootay. So when a black player talks about his knowledge that he has received in the football, basketball, baseball, they talk about a white player. So what am I saying? I'm saying that it's time now for those players who have benefited in the Euro-American athletic arenas to now build, to bring back to, to redevelop the leagues that were owned, operated, maintained, manufactured by black coaches, owners, and so forth. And when they told their stories about black men who had given their lives and dedicated their lives to making a black child or a young black man's life better. And in the end, that is not only equality, but that's equity and beyond. That's an autonomy. It's hard to build an autonomy when all your hopes and dreams and values are based on a culture that has oppressed you. And you can never see your way out of it. That's the psychology of racism. Is to always keep you in a way where you cannot see your people as help, benefactors, those who lift you up. So that's why you always hear black people say, son, when you go away, don't forget where you came from. You go to college and you get your degree. If you go to the predominantly white institutions and you play sports, when you go to the TV and you listen for the names of the institutions that the brothers come from, most of them come from white institutions. Every now and then you'll hear a black institution. Something's wrong with that setup. And to be content and happy with it, even after you're through with the game and not recognize that you have the ability to organize, structure, and develop a institution out of your own self-determination and institution building is a slave mentality. We have to recognize what the slave mentality is. How can we determine that? We're gonna deal with that with Shahrazad Ali. She's going to touch on how one can determine what the slave mentality is, and if a person has a slave mentality. And I'm sure that we can, to some degree, identify the slave mentality. The most obvious of all is the inability of a black man or woman not to say the word N-I-G-G-E-R. If you find people who cannot not say it and justify saying it, then you have the slave mentality. And we are now, from 1865 to 1965 was 100. From 1965 to 2005 is 40. From 2005 to 2012, it's 147 years. We have been out of captivity, but we cannot, to some degree, recognize that we are still living as though we are in the 1890s. Even though we got radio, television, we got Facebook, Twitter, we got all of these things, but we're still carrying with us this slave mentality And until one can bring it to our attention in a way of how we can undo this slave mentality and deal with the issue of the psychology of racism, y'all are a very special group because there are not many people in the U.S. who has taken such a class to even be able to elaborate on it, hear on it, or sit in the atmosphere where it's being discussed. Eric Holder said, it's a cowardice country when it comes to racism or the psychology of racism. So we have to give consideration to what Don Cornelius did in his efforts to try to do what the ball players need to do today. Take his own self-determination, and he went into institution building, and he did soul training. As minuscule as it may seem, it was powerful in the effect that he actually did it, and it worked. And that's how we have to deal with the solutions to racism, is that we have to write about it, talk about it, and then we have to deal with it. Anybody want to share anything? Anything you would like to share about what you saw on television, what you experienced at work? Any psychology of racism that you may have wanted to share this week? Last week we had a pretty good dialogue on that.
Well, my husband had experienced, that was almost a year ago. He was working for IBM, and there was on this project, and this guy, this white guy, called him a nigger. Yeah, called him a nigger. And of course they fired him.
White
They didn't. We could have sued them.
It's a large suit too.
Yep.
1.5 million.
So they was gonna give it up. It wasn't going to work. It wasn't worth it. But it was over a project they was doing. And he was going back and forth with them. And he said it. That blew me. I knew it was real. You know how you know it's real? But when you see it like that, it's like, wow. I mean, it was, sometimes it's not as obvious. Sometimes.
Right.
But this was like, bam, in your face. It just blew me. I couldn't believe it. I was like, I'm not going to say that. I said, it's not that I can't believe it. I just don't believe he had the nerve to say it out loud.
Yeah, right. And because the privilege of going to our white supremacy privilege distribution scale, it's a privilege that they have.
Mm-hmm.
And since they know they have this privilege, what racism did to black people is created an inferiority complex. What it did for white people was create a superiority complex. Now, there are two types of racism, white racism and black racism. Would y'all agree?
Yeah.
Some black people don't like white people, because of racism and what it has done. And white folks, practice racism because of their privilege and the benefits they get from it. But do y'all know of any racism that black people have that can affect the lives of white people? And on the other hand, do you know of how racism that white people perpetuate and will utilize affect the lives of black people? You know, white racism can keep you from getting a job. It can get you fired. It can get you killed. It can cause serious problems for you within your family. It can cause you to like a person because of their color. But what can black racism do to white people? Can you think of any?
I think it's these stories, and they might think that they're not more trustworthy. I guess, like, for instance, say you're sitting in the car, and you have your window down, your doors unlocked, and a black male comes past a white person's car. What do you think they're going to do?
They're going to let the windows up and lock the doors up. I've heard it several times. I would walk out of the store and there'd be some whites sitting in the, right at the door where the coming out of the store, and they'll clunk, clunk.
Yeah.
And so, but...
And I think even with us, that we do it too.
How do we do it?
Well, I mean, as far as, I ain't gonna say all of us, but I have seen a person, been in the car with a person, and when they saw a black male come past them on the door, and this was a black person.
Well, yeah, you might have did something to him. You might have been like people.
We're conditioned like just like that. We're conditioned just like that. That's all we see.
That's the
All
cultural
we see
condition.
is us robbing people, killing people. That's all we see.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, see, I guess my point here is, I'm trying to get the doctor's name out. But my point here is that white racism is based on power. It's a power construct. So you got to have, power and authority to affect others' lives. Whereas black racism, and I'm still debatable on if there's such a thing, can't change your life. Can't change white people's lives. Can't affect them in any kind of way. So a black person that, that's, would be considered a racist, he can't stop a white person from getting a job. He can't,
You can't do anything.
you're right.
It's
It's a fact. You see, it's power. It's a power construct. If I, lock the door, push my locks down if a white person goes by, it's because I said, somebody's thinking, well, that's what they do to me. It's that cultural conditioning. So, but in effect, that's the magnitude of what we can do. Emulate. We can't really, like, who's been running the country for the last 200 and, 1776 to 1976 is 100. 1976 to, 1776 to 1876 is 100. 1876 to 1976 is 200, right? 1976 to 2006, that's 30. 2006 to 2030, 36 years, 236 years. That, they have had control and power to be able to do the things that they want to do, and under the declaration of racism. And so much so that we talked about there are types of white people: good white people, nice white people, racist white supremacists, and neurological, intellectual, cultural supremacists. Those who are less racist can't do anything about those who are more racist until after the deed had been done. I was flipping through the channel, looking for, some programming that would be significant for the class, and I stumbled upon I don't know the name of the show, but it was on this new TV show called Bounce, a black TV show called Bounce. And it was a story about a racist white supremacist who had been killing black people, and make the long story short, he found and killed some white people who were Jews. Well, they put him in jail, and 20 years had went by. And so, he was on death row, and 15 years he was on death row. Well, they killed him for the 2 white children that he killed, but all the black people, nothing got done. So, the good white people mean well, they can be affected by the power of racism as well, by their own people. But black people can't do nothing but emulate, simulate, and mimic without power. If they try to put some power to it, then they'll be dispersed or wiped out, killed. And then the image that sends to other black people, the one that they sent from King again and Malcolm, the other civil rights leaders, has taken us all the way till today to think about it. So, with the psychology of racism, we have to be realistic about the black racism, the white racism, and the psychology of racism, and the power manifested in white racism. It's about intelligence, it's about information, it's about knowledge, knowing, so that we don't miscalculate and think in a way that doesn't help us to do the job that needs to be done, and that is discuss, write, talk, invent, become institution builders, take our self-determination and do the thing that needs to be done. Because if we see black racism, we might say, hey, look, they all right with what they're doing because, we're doing it. But we ain't doing it. They've been running the country for 200
So I think they keep doing, studies like last semester in my psychology class, we talked about, I believe it was 60 Minutes, that had a story about, they went in this affluential white neighborhood, and they had a car of black men sleep in the car. 90% or 95% of the people in the house called the police. Sleep. The white children were literally vandalizing the car, tearing apart the car. Only a handful of the people called the police. They said their reasons were like, they figured it was their parents' car or their own car. But I mean, we're so conditioned. They were asleep. Right. And everybody called the police on them just because they were black. They were asleep. But the white children were tearing apart the car, vandalizing the car, which is a crime, period.
Right.
But no one, very few called the police on them. It's just a condition. They pick, whenever they interview us, to me, I think they always pick the worst one. The one that looks the worst, the one that cannot speak English.
Right.
My daughter was coming out the subway, something had happened, and he spoke to my daughter. She was in her little school uniform, Catholic school uniform. But then they used the other person in her pajama pants and the curler in her head to put on people.
What?
Well, see, but that's how the psychology that's the psychology of racism. So, So then what does that do to us? That put in us a mechanism by which we can determine when and where the psychology of racism is and how it affects us. And so when we have conditioned ourselves to become immune to it to some degree, because we accept what goes on without mostly any response. It has to be something really, really tragic, for us to come together and really, say, hey, look, this is it. This is the end of it. We're not taking this anymore. But that was the straw that broke the camel's back. So what am I saying? Many, many things happened before this straw dropped. So in the psychology of racism, we want to be able to teach those who come behind our children. And we want to teach in our environment so that the more we teach about it, the more we know about it. It doesn't have to be a straw breaking the back, but the very first time we see it, we should have a response. Just, the fact that if you have a son and he goes to school, just going to school, and the bus don't come and get him, and he got to get there. The psychology of racism is such that you worry. And your daughter, the same, if she got there's a program called on TV one, Missing. And, and she deals with, I forget the doctor's name, she deals with all of the missing black people and, that they never found any of them.
Yeah, I remember. I
Were you on
see,
TV like that?
yeah, that's what she was saying.
None of them never got found.
Yeah.
And so, the psychology of racism, they just looked over that. Now, I don't know how many she has researched and found, but once again, when we look at it, even if it was one of us doing something to one of us under the psychology of racism, it's likely not to be found. So we, as I said, this class is really a good class because it's putting us in a way in the direction of information and knowledge that we need to know to be able to deal with this.
The Lululemon, when that happened a year ago?
Yeah.
Lulu.
Lululemon, where she killed the white woman in the store?
Yeah.
Now, yeah, it was less than a year, and this black woman has been prosecuted and life in jail.
Mm-hmm.
My brother was killed by another black man, and he was at his desk in his apartment complex. He was the manager. It's been 3.5 years. We haven't had a trial yet. 3.5 years.
Psychology of racism. You just look at it like it doesn't.
3.5 years. Right. That's what I'm saying. That's like it doesn't even matter. And I mean, he was an upstanding citizen. He had a non-profit for children in the Suitland area. He was in his business suit sitting at his desk.
They haven't persecuted the brother yet.
He's in
And
jail.
they know that he did.
They know what it is. And he's gotten away with murder before. And he's gotten away with murder before. He's sitting in jail for
likely
something else.
to get out.
He's in jail for something else, drug charges in Virginia, but it's been 3.5 years. 3.5 years.
Psychology of racism.
Lululemon was 1 year because a black woman killed a white woman.
1 year.
It was over and done in a year, the whole thing.
Just like the movie, they did put him to death. He was in Mississippi. Took him 15 years, but they, and there, several other cases like your brothers. They know it. But the psychology of racism has us to overlook that. So what can be done in this case? An appeal to the higher court.
I guess because there's so many of us. I'm one of 10, and he had 5 children, so it's 4 boys without a dad. And we try to do things orderly, like all that information was disseminated to one brother, and then they would tell everybody else, so we didn't bombard them because there's so many of us. But it's like, perhaps we should have bombarded them. You know what I mean? Because it's like,
an appeal, get another lawyer.
Where's the guy at? Is he locked up?
He's locked up in Virginia, but this happened in Baltimore.
And they got proof, and I would pursue
Well, what
it.
they waiting for then?
I don't know. I mean,
The lawyers are, plea bargained and, for something else.
It's a mess. I mean, he claims he's really trying to get him because, like I said, they know he's got no before for first degree murder. I mean, he has a rap sheet like I didn't know you could just go online and put people's names in.
You can find it.
I was like, wow. I mean, he has a rap sheet that's ridiculous.
And he still, because it was a black person.
Right.
And that's why you would have to go past the lawyer to write a letter to.
I mean, the state is prosecuted, but it's just. Well, the state is prosecuted. I mean, my brother.
The state is the prosecutor.
The state attorney, So, I mean, it's just.
The lawyer has to go push the state to proceed for somebody got
It's
to
just
go.
been, every time I turn around, it's one excuse after another. So, I mean, last thing, her house caught on fire with a file in it.
What?
The lawyer's house?
His lawyer.
His lawyer's house.
And then this last time, we don't even know what it was. We just got a phone call. Like, it's not going to happen again. So, we get all built up. This is like, it's torture. We get all built up to go and sit and deal with this. And then we tell, oh, it's not going to happen. So then we got to wait some more. And we get built up. We get some little excuse again.
And that goes like, Richard Pryor says, no, justice is just us.
Yeah, it's like
And so, it's really ridiculous because everybody else gets what they want.
Her case was done and over in a year. And she's
when it comes to whites get,
right.
Whites get.
Black killing white.
If your brother was not a color white.
Right.
It would have been done. That would have been done.
It's the psychology of racism because of, it has to do with, white. They receive such privileges that we don't, even when we're right and we know that we're right, and we have absolute, undeniable proof in this democratic racism is what it is, a democratic racism. It doesn't do justice to black folks. And now they've come in with a new system of minority.
But I don't even know if, like, for instance, DC doesn't have its own forensic lab. Baltimore doesn't have their own forensic lab. How do you not, in cities with such high crime, if you know it, not have your own?
And then they got budgets. They could pay people. They could come in and put a forensic.
My brother's stuff had to go to the Midwest for them to do the testing because they don't have forensic. It went somewhere in the Midwest.
In DC, a place like Jack
In Baltimore, right? DC doesn't have it. Have to go to Quantico. In DC,
because black folks in DC.
Exactly, and that's what's in Baltimore. So it's like,
wherever we at, well, the psychology of racism affects us. So, like I said, there's 2 kinds of racism: black racism, white racism. And we can do, very much about it. or anything with the racism we have, except when on ourselves. And then that doesn't benefit us. In the end, we lose. So we're going to listen to Charlotte Ali and let her tell us her solution to this problem, the psychology of racism. Charlotte Ali, she wrote the book, Black Man's Guide to Understanding the Black Woman, and the Black Woman's Guide to Understanding the Black Man.
And now you're back to talk about the black man. All of the cries of racism have become a convenient crutch he leans on to explain his perpetual crippled leadership in and out of the house. The black man is number 10, Brian. The black man is denied respect and honor because he is inconsistent, disunified, and unproductive.
Well, I think I need to preface my response first by saying that none of us can really conceptualize. We really don't have those types of clues to the kind of psychological trauma that black men have experienced as a result of racism. And thirdly, I wanted to discuss our critical points of view so that I could get us out of the way. As black women, I wanted to talk about what we do and how we have responded to the needs so that we would clear the way to discuss for ourselves. The purpose of the Black Woman's Guide is to try to teach black women some of the reasons that he is in the condition he's in that have nothing to do with us. And I certainly maintain that his problem has not been racism as much as his in-depth reaction to it. And he has become an embarrassment to us. He does not have a program for us. And he does not have a program for his children. In every civilization, a man's son is the greatest gift God can give him. And we have a black man that has no relationship at all. He's not only disassociated from us, we are frightened, we are scared, we are vulnerable, we are left to have to turn to you. It is very natural that we would be attracted to the white man since you have more power and authority over our life than he does.
We understand that so that for a black man living in a white society, you see the tradition, one of a kind of longing to be like the black, like the white man, and an effort to be accepted.
No, it's more so like a parent-child relationship. White men have been the foster parents of black men, although they've been the abusive parents, they have been the foster parents. And so consequently, now that relationship is in turmoil because the black man is longing to go free, except he has lost any rational logic about what it is to be free, and after reclaim his position as man over us and father to his own children. And so that's left him in a very desperate situation that we no longer have anything for.
Examples of what black men must do to fight for their freedom. Miss Ali. Number 1, quit a job working in the system.
Never separate himself from the former slave master.
This is number 11, Brian. Can we see it? Number 2, abandon all his credit cards.
Absolutely. And dollar down and dollar week has failed many a black man.
Default on his car note in order to give full attention to important issues in the struggle.
Absolutely. We have done that fine wardrobes and fine cars, and then they get hungry.
We don't got enough black men in jail. You want to put some more?
Well, that's another aspect of it. Some of our strongest and bravest and boldest black men are in prison. We got 500,000 black men locked up. No civilization organization of people is as strong as we are can survive with 500,000 black men locked up because of their frustration.
You don't sound very empathetic.
I'm not happy. I'm enraged because I'm alone. I don't have anybody to hold me.
This is number 12. Stop going to church and study your own cultural religion.
Absolutely.
Take black women off the streets who are living immoral.
Absolutely. We keep waiting on you to come in and do something for our children and get our women in order. Y'all get our women in order. Then you're women.
Make his word his bond and begin doing what he says he's going to do.
Stop lying to us about everything.
Here's what black men lie about. Next, how much money he makes. did to him in bed, his marital status, about how much his clothes cost, about how many children he had. Stop lying about what your position or your job is. Stop lying how much power you wield in the house. And stop lying about how you get along with your wife or your woman.
Right. All of that. You know, this is about anything. Why God jumped on the moon? It doesn't matter because we know them. We know how you look. We know how you smell. We know what it feels like to touch you. So we know when you're lying, but we have to tolerate that they're not to get along with you because if we brush you in the lie, you stop coming around us and disappear. So we have to pretend like what you say is the truth. Well, we be disappointed.
You're very close. You're very close. You're very close. Well, there's going to be some fiction going on in this side. You're very close to saying that the black man is a winner.
Well, he is, but it's not because he has to be one. He is one because he keeps comparing himself to you. They act like they're total challenging life is to figure out which big sector by you. We've been following them behind that idea since the 1960s, when we followed you all into the so-called integration and civil rights movement, which was a total failure, poorly thought out, and no thought was given to by sending yourselves and us into the white community on the basis of something you saw us carrying, shopping some store, or going in some hotel, then you would destroy the economic basis of the black community. Because all of those businesses that we used to service, we tried to take our money into white people so we could try to get accepted by y'all.
This is what the black woman's got to understanding the black man.
Hell no, that.
You see Martin Luther King is promoting this kind.
Oh, that was so sad.
Tell me.
I really, you know, he was a good brother, so I don't want to even do that to his family and everything, but he had some psychological problems, you know, that desperation, he started to want to be abused, and so he had all of us going out there getting beat with firearms, and there were more women in the civil rights marches than black men. So there were more women and children, and so we were out there getting beat up and everything, but Martin somewhere praying, his family was taken care of somewhere else, and he led black men into a phase of suffrage. You know, all of the songs about no matter what you do to us, our white brother, we gonna love you anyway. To try to shame you won't let you sharing something with us. And so I was maintaining to them that they're not just dealing with racism.
Yeah, and you feel that Jesse Jackson's bid for the presidency was diversion.
Total rip-off, he wasted millions of dollars to tell he was gonna be the president of the United States. All of that run, Jesse run. And the Rainbow Coalition, ain't no black in the rainbow.
She is very controversial.
Understanding the black woman. Harrison said she wrote the book because the black woman is completely out of control. She feels that black women need advice on how to handle their black men. And here's what she writes about the black woman. Quote, if she ignores the authority and superiority of the black man, there's a penalty. It's time for the black man to soundly slap her in the mouth. And quote. She goes on to write about the black woman, quote, her brain is smaller than the black man, her thought processes don't compare to the conscious black man. Scheherazade, you have created an enormous stir with this book. It also says, read it before she does. What the heck are you doing with this idea? What's going on? Well, the book has taught us the reactions of pain, frustration, and confusion. Because that's what most of us as black women started with. And so what I'm trying to do is to provide new information to the black man that will allow him to understand us better. We will never been examined. But what does the black man not know about the black woman? All sorts of things. He doesn't know what usually motivates us, why we behave the way that we do, where do we get our value system from. There's a lot of information that he doesn't know about us that we have kept from him so that we can control him. So these are secrets. Yes. Now, you describe 3 types of black women. Would you help us with that? Well, it's like small, medium, and large, except I say lower grade, average, high class. You say the low life has teeth missing. What else? Well, now, first of all, this is not a joke. This is a very serious issue that we have here. Okay? The condition of the relationship affairs between the black man and the black woman here in this country is in a very serious situation. This is a very sensitive issue, and many of us have reacted very emotionally to it. The fact that 99% of the black men who read my book say that it is the truth has to be considered. What it proves is that we have a problem with definition and interpretation, because we see ourselves as one way, and they see us as I describe in my book, which is not always very good.
Well, I think you better fill us in on how they see it, so.
Well, we have a situation where we as black women have been insulated in this society. No one would ever dare attack or insult or even examine a black woman. We have been above reproach because we were given some information about 30, 35 years ago that was actually, I think, designed to be a compliment. But what it eventually did was to separate us from our man. And that information was that we were the backbone of the black nation. Now that implies that our own black man don't have no backbone, and that his women have to represent him as his friend. When, as you know, in your culture, the white male is the dominant. He is always recognized as the most powerful. And actually, since the black man was the first man recorded on earth, he has a very strong backbone. He has the strongest backbone, and he is holding up all of the other nationalities that came after him. So I think if we get that straight and stop trying to hold on to a false reputation that we are the backbone of our nation, that then our families will start to get along better.
Do you think that was the black man? Do you think that the black man really thinks these things about the black woman? Even in the high class you wrote, she's a rat who behaves like a dog while purring like a cat.
You know, black men think I get a lot of other information. A lot of the information in my book, he never considered things before I wrote it, put it in print. The information is true. And what I'm trying to do is to let black men know and give them information of the missing link. This is the only information that they have in their head. They have in their head the truth about us as black women.
But you're true. Your true Scheherazade is, you describe black women as materialistic, alcoholic, drug using, loud. Lying is a practice all black women participate in. She buys hot clothes, she shoplifts in order to have a particular item, and the men need to control their women.
That's true, and add on to that most of us as black women have our black men bullied. Well, that's why we can find so few to come on the show with me today. That they agree with the book in private. Many of them have apprehensions about coming public and saying, yes, this is true, for fear of the reprisals and the emotional upset in their homes. And so we got our man bullied. What I'm trying to do is to give him the information so he'll know what he's dealing with, and then he won't be afraid of us.
But what he's dealing with does not sound very nice.
No, it's not nice. Now, one of the reasons it's not nice is because the white female has been the only mentor that most of us have had. The only women we've had to look at every day of our life on television, newspapers, magazines, and movies has been the white woman. It has only been recently that we have started seeing pictures of ourselves that we could integrate. And so consequently, we have a tendency to try to get along with the black man in the same way that the white woman get along with the white man, except it don't work on the brothers because they have a completely different nature.
What's the different nature?
Well, they have a different motivation, they have different psychological needs, they have different desires, they look different, they have different ideas, different reactions to things, different wardrobes, different music. You know, we can go on and on with that.
But you say that the black man should know we can't trust the black woman.
Well, we can't be trusted until we get the right idea. And the right idea is for us to be in the proper place with our man. See, a family, let's look at a family. A family is like a nation. And every nation must have a government. And at the head of that government, you have to have one head. And I'm saying that it must be the black man.
You read the book.
Well, it's certainly an issue that we never solved, and the only response we've been ever able to give about it has been one of anger and hostility. But there are some unresolved issues about it, and what this book does, are you still afraid? It's a checkwork book. It's 50 questions, true and false. There are no trick questions, and it's designed to let us find out if we are practicing slavery, self-induced now, since we no longer have a slave master, without, any outside intervention. If we are still doing the things that we did in slavery that impact upon our lifestyle today. You said a couple of things that I can feel free to jump right in. The first thing you said is we've never resolved it. When you say we, the black community, the black-white community, America, the world, well, that's part of it not being resolved. We keep expecting, something because we experience that trauma, because our ancestors experienced that trauma. We want some sympathy. We want the 40 acres out of you. We want some kind of therapy. We want something for it. We've never even really gotten any recognition for it. It's unresolved between us because it presents so much pain that it makes us embarrassed, it makes us ashamed about it. And so we would rather fluff it over and press and say forget about it. But that history still lives in us. And while we can say that biological traits are transmitted through regular heredity, cultural ideas are also transmitted. And right now we are living with many of those slavery ideas that we have never resolved. And we don't need a slave master. It's like a self-induced post-hypnotic trance we're in. We're doing our own slavery ideas. And remember, this is a conversation. When you say slavery ideas, what do you mean? Well, I mean, a lot of the decisions that we make, a lot of the attitudes we have, for example, are very routine and moderate or acceptable. Actually, are rooted in slavery. Ideas we might have about, say, funerals. There's a question in the book about the purpose of funerals and why we attend them. And most of us would say, yes, we do attend them to pay homage to the dead and to support the families and so forth. But that isn't really how the funeral idea started. The funerals of laying the body out in the casket. When our people came over here on the ship, any slave who was just more rebellious than the others, they might be used as an example. And so they might beat that slave every day, 2 or 3 days, and make the other slave, when they came up for air and water, to watch them, to see this beating in order to strike terror in their hearts. It was fear in them. And then when that slave finally died, they would cut the head off of the slave, perhaps put it on a stick or a barrel, and then make all of the other slaves march past it. And she wanted nothing to do with burial, because the burial rites trace back all the way to Africa, and they were really taking in the burial procession. They call that his not the funeral procession that we do in America. That came from slavery, where we walk past the casket in single file, even if the casket is closed, we march past it. And you can't even still keep it. We walk past the casket in single file to look at a person who is dead or enslaved. Well, it came from a process that started on the ship. Yes, I am saying that. It came from being on the ship.
Well, part of the difficulty, I think, of talking about the consequences of slavery is that you have to have many levels. I think Ms. Ali is exactly right to talk about the consequences of slavery in our contemporary culture. I wouldn't want to necessarily trace them to a one-to-one correspondence. What we did in Africa, or what we did not do in Africa, what we did in America as a result of enslavement, and then being correspondingly related to practices we do now, because there's so many influences that are mongrelized that are
that's what it shows the correlation. It shows that the things that we did then, the attitudes we had, and the things that traumatized us so much psychologically and emotionally, we're still doing those things. Now, let me tell you, the slave master understood the impact and the effect of trauma. This is why they beat a man, or burn him, or hung him. They would make all of the other slaves come out and watch it. They would even put the little baby on the ground and the little man hanging, because they knew if they could make a genetic impact of terror on the brain, so that they have to be reduced. And that's what
we have to do today is understand that we have gone from pyramid builders to project builders. And we have to look at our position in America and ask ourselves, are we really all that we claim to be, and are we that which we should be? And if our actions would be approved by our enemy, if our actions would be sanctioned and condoned by our enemy, then we have to seriously question ourselves on whether we're really fulfilling our duty to the community or we acting as a slave. Most of our problems stem from the Black Holocaust and slavery, the drugs, the homosexuality, the immorality. The problems that we have today were created here in America. God made the black man and the black woman, and the white man made niggers. So this is what we have to think about as we engage in this discussion. Well, part of the thing is, the problem I have with, if we use slave as a metaphor, if we're using it as I think you're doing it as a metaphor, we're saying that we are subject to a condition over which we claim to have no control. That is, we don't have any control over our time. My point is that when we talk, the problem I had with talking about the continuing effects of slavery is that what happens is that black folks end up talking about the indexes of slavery with one another, judging them based upon their own preferences. So that if I prefer to have an African name versus a so-called Christian name. If I prefer to follow
That doesn't make you a slave.
right,
That's like your name.
Right.
You never had to use your name a cow, you don't get one.
right,
So why never remember our black children names after the white people on slavery?
Is that your personal preferences are indexed as a way of saying somebody's a slave or not. So that when we get a debate about whether it's a Christian or not,
8 pages of it, starting at about 1560.
let me make up my point is this, is that when we get into notion, I think part of this is a question of purity. There's no such thing as regressing back to a pure state of Africanity. There's no such thing. I think that part of what we're dealing with is that we are dealing with the intersection of different realities and identities of constituting what it means to be black. Paul Gilbert in his book, his recently published book, talks about the transatlantic experience. That we're either West Indian altogether, we're either North American altogether, we're either British altogether, or African American, we're all those things together.
Well, what this addresses is that we have never received any credit for NDC preaching. And I mentioned the Iranian hostages before, 440 days of trauma that they experienced in 1979. Many of them are still in therapy. So I said, if they are still in therapy for something that happened 10 or 15 years ago, then what must we experience after being enslaved for 440 years, as opposed to 440 days? And in therapy, what you mentioned, the first thing the therapist has to do is to take the patient back to the trauma and build from there. You can't flunk that over and act like it didn't happen. And then the therapist has to teach the patient to forgive themselves. We have to go back to that. Get that straight, get it settled, and move forward. That's the experience we are having. We have to be like we're speaking today. But what language you want to talk about?
Well, the same thing when we talk about it, we have names, we have American names. Well, the reality is, what are we going to call ourselves?
Well, that's what this book is about. You don't know that.
We are.
I'm trying to get off the shit right there. But you get what I heard.
Some of the questions that you ask in the book, they're very subjective. You have to to answer these questions.
Right.
And you answer the questions 31 through
don't do that in the other area. Don't do that. Don't do that.
Setting that process up, what you do, that is subjective, that is your process for setting it up. And I
researched them. Now, the way it's talking about here, and then we'll let you in, and then we'll let you in. This is a goodness point. But we want to learn. The purpose is to learn. I think it's very important for us to talk about the impact of slavery, what it has done, and how we can get over it. That's what we want to do. But when you raise the question like, we have a question in the book. You don't want me to talk about the question. You talk about if you tell a joke, if a white person tells a joke and the joke is not racist, and if you laugh, you're a slave. Well, what if it's funny? I mean, what if it's a joke? Here is an old habit, as I said, of us being forced to laugh at the slave master's joke. We don't laugh, but it's not funny. Yes, we do. We laugh if we think it'll give us some points. I'm not laughing at the before we get to behavior, maybe what we ought to do is define what is a slave mentality today. How I take a break, okay, and when we come back, everyone will tell you. You can depend on that. What a slave mentality is right after this. We're back, and this is a fairly interesting conversation with a lot of opinions about slaves. Are we still slaves? Do we have a slave mentality? And if so today, how does it manifest itself?
Okay. Case in example, Malcolm X said slave mentality is this. When the master got sick, the house slave would say, "Master, we sick." When the house caught on fire, the house slave would die trying to put the fire out, but it was a field slave who would pray for a strong wind. Example, when we, the Black revolutionary students of Howard University, when history, a mecca of Afrocentric black revolutionary thought. Many Negroes, those with dead slave mentalities, those who fear the white man, immediately began buck dancing.
But can I ask you a question? I'm going to stop because I have to let
And they were in fear of us bringing what we had the right to bring.
you allow to this. Because what you're suggesting is that if you go on Howard campus, University campus, and if you suggest the way that the university should be run, and anyone who doesn't agree with you is a nigga, a buck dancing nigga, you call it.
Well, anyone who would disagree with the right under the United States Constitution, First Amendment, to bring various points of view and thought to the campus, that would be a buck dancer. Because indeed, you should stand behind the Constitution that we all respect, and we should be able. University means unity and diversity. It's one campus, but it's diverse points of view that should come in.
And debate.
I welcome you to debate because I welcome debate because I know that I don't believe that at all.
I think that when Dr. Muhammad, Ms. Muhammad was on campus, people asked the Jews, people asked the gay community. Let me finish. People asked the gay community, and for the sake of y'all, I don't think that y'all are very diverse in terms of accepting various views and various viewpoints. And because of that, let me finish. And because of that, because you come from a Afrocentric perspective, I think that's fine, but I think you can process that more than you have.
But I don't want to go into a discussion of the Islam. What I want to do is a choice mentality and how we actually are. I was just curious about his statement. I'm not about to do a flip slate profile on contemporary attack, so we can recognize them. They refer to other blacks as you guys instead of sister brothers, wearing brand name clothes so that the white people design their shows, wearing a cross around the neck on the lapel or hanging on the wall in the home. So if I was called black by their African name, if I choose to wear a cross today, you would call me a black. You would call me a symbol that was used to explain my
At the same time, you have to consider that Bishop Stallings in this town, Washington, D.C., at some point said, and kind of drawing a picture that African Americans should not have a white Jesus in their home, but in fact, have a black Jesus in their home. And because of that, I think that black people need to have images that reflect them and images that they are proud of. I think because we're talking about the doctor, we're talking about I'm confused. Sure. I wanted to know what a slave mentality is. And we have an example of how we demonstrate a slave mentality today.
Let's start here with the religion again. A slave mentality is one who would take Christianity or the Bible and worship a blonde-haired, blue-eyed, pale-skinned Jesus. One who would keep preaching this false doctrine of love your enemies. But a real black man, a free man,
Islam came to Africa through the
anybody who would follow the white Arab is a slave also. I believe that Islam is the original religion of the black man, as in all the principles of Christianity and Islam are rooted in the original people.
When the kind of crypto-fascism that disallows a variety of opinions to come forward, I think fascism and more of the slave mentality existed when black people began to evoke business tests for their newfound Afro. Let me finish. Business tests for authentic Negrohood or African Americanness. All of us have such tremendous diversity in our blood, in our bones, in our culture. I resent, and I think that the people that make slave mentality based upon what are external manifestations of what are more deep inward reality, people don't know about. When somebody says to me, for example, let me take myself as an example. Here I am, a professor who taught I believe in trade, I believe in also, but I came from Detroit, poor, lived on welfare, didn't go to college until I was 21. Suffered in economic,
So I'm saying that the variety of African American especially in urban terrain that I've absorbed into my own body, the black people with whom I grew up and that I know intimately are part of who I am and what I do. Now, because I wrote an article I was about to say that disagreed with Leonard Jeffrey, people will be going to say, you know, you tell our Negro, you kind of Negro that we are, you're the kind of Negro that white folks love. But they don't know my name, they don't know my mama's name, they don't know where I came from. They don't know my name. They don't understand that oppressed people serve have a revolutionary standard, and we have to purge ourselves of all those who are against the revolution. Jeffrey, the slave
All right, that's good enough, right? Now, I know it was a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very heated dialogue. Now, there's a correlation between religion and the word N-I-G-G-E-R, meaning that religion has been an instrument by which to carry the word on. It exists in, you noticed, you know, those who are Christians, they use the word. Those who are Muslims, they use the word. And when the word comes up, bedlam, confusion, you know, we can't get along. It's hard to, you know, disseminate information. It just becomes just like what that is going to be about in tomorrow. It's just like with the Bev Smith show. The name of that show was the Bev Smith show, the last one. Did y'all know the other people in the on the show?
The light-skinned guy.
Michael Eric Dyson. He
Yeah.
teaches out of Georgetown. Then there was Malik Zulu Shabazz. He's one of the co-founders of the new Black Panther Party, the one that had on the African Triangle. And then Bev Smith was the, you know, the person over the show. She was the coordinator. And so we get everybody reminded of that. And then the other brother was, you know, he was a gay. Did y'all see his name on there? He was gay. Yeah, he was gay. He was from the gay community. Yeah, he did. He was, you know.
I know he said something about trying to support the church.
Right. He was a gay. I missed his name. So, but you know, now I put this thing together so that we could, number one, see how to deal with the psychology of racism from a perspective of Shahrazad Ali and how she delivers her message to us and the response that she gets from the way she delivers her message. And some of the things she says were controversial, but they were also, some of them were true in terms of what we need to do, black men and black women, about how we deal with the psychology of racism and how it deals with us. Now, I wrote some down, but, what I want y'all to write down is there's a correlation between religion, the correlation between, y'all got all of this off the wall? There's a correlation between the psychology of racism and religion, and the word psychology of racism, religion and the word Nigger. Now, I don't say the word because I know the devastation of it. You saw what it did. It just started, once it came out, and it just started all kinds of confusion. I wanted y'all to be able to see the effect of what the word does, and why we need to really stop using it, and how, it carries on the slave mentality. And it's being carried on through those who practice these in particular religions. I know because in some way, shape, form, or fashion, I either practiced at one time or another, or I studied them. Correlation between religion and the word Nigger. And what is it? What is this correlation? The correlation is that the word originates itself in these in particular religions and is carried from generation to generation. And people who practice colonial religions and have been a part of the perpetration of the word Nigger cannot not say it. They have to say it because it's been with them for generations. And until they begin to acknowledge the correlation between the religion and this inhumane terminology, they cannot not say it. A person that practices Christianity doesn't know that the origin of the word began in Christianity. Even the first ship that was documented was a ship named Jesus. And so they brought the captives from the West Coast to the Black diaspora. And then from the East Coast to Africa, and then to the Black diaspora. The East Coast of Africa was the Muslims, the origin of the word. And so you will hear Muslims and or Christians and or even Jewish. I've seen something, they will say it as well. I'm not so sure about the Buddhists, but those Buddhists who were in South Africa, the word is interchangeable, meaning the same as a dehumanizing thing in South Africa. It's kafir. You heard the term kafir, you believe that kafir. There's a brother wrote a book about kafir. Name it's away from me right now. C-A-F-F-E-R, kafir. You look that up. Get the brother's name. But the result of this correlation is that it perpetuates and maintains the slave mentality. And until we in some shape, form, or fashion, and I believe scientifically, deal with the fact that the origin of the word comes from the colonial religions, and then go into that religion and extract it from that religion, we won't be able to get rid of that slave mentality until we do the research and study that's needed to be able to pinpoint and be able to discuss it. Because to be able to do it outside of a classroom in a religious setting, you might get in a fight. So, you know, you have to be able to go to the minister and explain to him that there's a correlation, meaning they're at work together. You know, with Christianity, Islam, and colonial religions, and black people. So that's another solution from Blackology or cultural science as to what we need to do with the psychology of racism. Psychology of racism perpetuates and maintains the slave mentality through religion. As we saw on the documentary, they were having a pretty good discussion before somebody said N-I-G-G-E-R, and everybody lost it. For those who don't want to believe that there's a problem with it, they should see that cultural therapy lecture. Now, so what do you think about the Black Man's Guide to Understanding the Black Woman? What did you write that?
Pretty much, I mean, some of the things you had on there, made it good. Some other things I would say they were highly controversial.
Right.
You know? I mean, just from looking at the audience, it was the same thing with the people in the audience, both men and female. Some of them kind of related to what she was saying, while some others, you know, if you look at their face, you can tell they were into agree with what she wrote on there. So I'm just trying to figure out how she came up with those kind of questions. Now, when she talked about she did research, I mean, this are ideas, because I think the other brother was telling her, I think this are your ideas, and these things you came up with. She said, no, she did have research, so I just want to figure out how she came up with the research.
Well, she researched, you know, black people in the black culture, and I think a period of, you know, 2 to 4 years. And she came out with the book, the first book, The Black Man's Guide to Understanding the Black Woman. What inspired her to do so was that she said she was always hearing black men, you know, complaining about their relationship with their women, and you know, and a lot of the things that they were saying, she knew they were true because being a black woman, she had experienced some of those things, and so she began to do the research and write and you know, take notes and